a $30 Steam game, a developer that downplays any NFT involvement when asked on Steam, and a roadmap that goes all in on NFT and crypto. Welcome to Guild Saga. On the surface, it's a beautiful and well-crafted pixel CRPG series, but look slightly below and you'll find NFT collections, crypto coins, and multiple NFT games coming soon. Hey there, and welcome to another episode of I try to play all the NFT games on Steam so you don't have to. Today is going to be a bit different because rather than playing or trying to play multiple games, I only play a single game this time. The reason being is because I actually like Guild Saga. That's it. There's no jokes or snark here. I genuinely enjoyed my time playing Guild Saga, which just made it all the more sad that this game's future is going to be ruined by crypto and NFTs. Oh my god, he said the thing! So for anyone new here, first of all, welcome. I hope you enjoy your stay, but the way I do these videos is before we get to the actual gameplay, I first take a look at the background of the development, the lore so to speak. So, without further ado, let's get to the first and only game for this episode. Guild Saga Vanish Worlds is a pixel-based anime-esque styled single-player CRPG, taking inspiration from games like Divinity Original Sin and Final Fantasy Tactics. Guild Saga sits on very positive, with 243 reviews, with 86% of it being positive. Guild Saga released in early access on the 11th of October 2024 and has been steadily getting updates, with their last major one being fairly recent on the 24th of September, version 0.6, which means they are getting closer to a full release. The Steam version of Guild Saga is not free to play, it costs around $30 and this price might be increased when it leaves early access. Now looking at the screenshots and videos, the game looks really well made and the pixel art is gorgeous. The reviews themselves are actually made by real people, not just crypto bots, and the game actually did have a bunch of CRPG reviewers on YouTube praising the game. So with all that in mind, and knowing that this game is on the NFT list, you might assume that this is yet another case of a good game being picked up by some rich Web3 investor like say Animoca Brands to force Ocelot, the developers, into incorporating NFTs and crypto. Well, I'm here to tell you that that is not the case. No, unfortunately the plans for the Guild Saga series being an NFT game runs deep, real deep, even before the game had a demo, so let's take a look at all their Web3 plans. Firstly, their white paper, which was last updated on October 9th, 2023, a full year before their Steam release. Here you'll find details on how the gameplay for Guild Saga is going to tie into their economy, as well as the blockchain integration, stating that it is an important component in Guild Saga's gameplay loop, which involves earning XP, NFTs, currency, etc. by doing quests, progressing through the story mode, gauntlet mode, as well as their PvP ladder, because of course an NFT game needs a PvP mode. All of these modes will be separate games from what I can tell, and all those currencies will be used to level up your characters, weapons, equipment, etc. Moving on from that, at some point Guild Saga had released a demo in late 2022 called Guild Saga Tales of Respite, which provided people an early look on the story mode of the game. In it you play two stowaways to explore the island's subterranean cave network. Unfortunately, you can't play this demo anymore, so if it had any lore, it's all gone now. And this demo is kind of important because while the items and progressions don't carry over to future Guild Saga releases, anyone who played the demo would have been rewarded with NFTs had they done certain achievements, provided bug reports, or feedback. So yeah, like I said, even before the demo was even released, there were already plans for the game to incorporate NFTs. Now in terms of what the NFTs are or what they're going to be doing in-game, well, it's your typical NFT implementation, with the characters, equipment, and other usable in-game loot being the tradable NFTs, all of which will have things like rarity, actual stats, and provide substantial benefits and advantages. They even state here that the higher the quality level, the more powerful the item. There's also going to be these mercenary NFTs whose sole purpose is to generate their crypto coins, which by the way they have two of, GGLD and GGEM, as well as other in-game resources. These mercenary NFTs can only be generated with the use of a hero NFT and can't actually be used in-game. They are purely for the crypto aspect. Now I will mention that all of this stuff is only going to be implemented on the free-to-play versions of Guild Saga, not the Steam version. So if they keep their word, then the Steam version will be exempt from all of this pay-to-win nonsense. Hopefully. Their hero NFTs, by the way, have already been minted and put on the blockchain. Around 10,000 heroes were minted on the Solana blockchain on the 25th of February 2022, which is 2.5 years before the Steam release and around half a year before their first playable demo. But those 10,000 heroes will be the only ones to exist. No more will ever be minted, which means a large part of the economy and Web3 aspect will be controlled by at most 10,000 people, all of whom will be enjoying massive boosts to earning the limited crypto coin currency as well as other advantages. Now, I'm not an economist or anything, but that doesn't sound particularly healthy in the grand scheme of things. The hero NFTs you can find on marketplaces like Solana Art and Magic Eden, all of which come with equipment. The most expensive of these hero NFTs is priced at 51,000 Sol coins, or $11.3 million. Or, to put things into perspective, 141,250 PlayStation 5 copies of Alan Wake 2, Deluxe Edition. Once again, I'll let you decide which one has more value since I'll admit it is subjective. They also have an item marketplace, but it seems to be down as of late September according to this Discord bug report, and it has yet to be fixed. I tried their link and it just takes me to an endless loading screen. Now, I mentioned it earlier, but Guild Saga has two crypto coins, Guild and Gugum. And from what I could see, Guild can't be bought yet. Currently, it can only be earned in their play-to-earn web game called World Mode, where you can stake your heroes and send them out on quests to get resources and such. This World Mode web game, by the way, is not technically free to play. You can access the game, sure, but in order to do anything on it, you need a hero NFT to start earning. So hey, if you got an extra 11 mil lying around, buy that hero NFT and start earning today. As for their Gugum, they can be traded on marketplaces such as Radium or FFF, averaging at around 0.02 Sol per Gugum, which is around $4 to $5. These Gugum coins can be used to buy loot boxes in their world mode for in-game loot. So that's all their crypto NFTs out of the way, let's look at their NFT games currently in development. And luckily we don't have to look too far as they've put most of it on their website. But you can easily miss it if you just look at the landing page, which just showcases Guild Saga Vanished World, their non-NFT Steam version. But on this drop-down menu, we see 3 games currently: the Steam version, World Mode, their NFT web app, and Guild Saga Labyrinths, which is an Epic Game Store exclusive NFT game. And it's going to be a roguelike procedurally generated dungeon crawler featuring Solana blockchain tech, which I assume just means pay to win and play to earn mechanics. The other modes are not up yet on Epic, but eventually there will be a free-to-play version of the Steam game called Story Mode, which will come after the Gauntlet mode, aka Labyrinths, is done, as well as a PvP mode, which will also be made after the Gauntlet and Story modes are finished or nearly finished. So yeah, as much as I would love to say that Guild Saga is being forced into NFTs by the big bad Web3 corporations, and maybe there's a chance they'll eventually break free, unfortunately, that's just not the case here. Everything you see is a conscious choice by the developers, and clearly, they're all in on it too. Alright, so now that you've gotten the lore dump, let's finally play Guild Saga Vanished Worlds. Now for the record, all this gameplay was recorded on the version 0.6 patch of Vanished Worlds, just in case things get drastically changed in the future. When we begin, we get an important notice that this game is obviously still in early access, but more importantly that saves from previous versions are not compatible with the current versions. Which ultimately means, I assume, that with every new major patch, I would have to start from scratch every time. So for anyone wanting to try this game out, keep that in mind. But here we are, the main menu, and I have to say the art is gorgeous. I love the paintbrush stroke look of the background. Now before anyone starts accusing the game of AI, which I'm sure some of you might, there isn't a disclaimer on the Steam page of the use of AI. I know that doesn't mean much and maybe they're lying, but I did find 2 names listed as the lead artist and illustrator. Now I couldn't find anything on Marcus Malin, but Kato Ayaka is an actual artist who has made illustrations for Cardfight Vanguard, Magic the Gathering, and Fire Emblem Cypher, so she is legit. Also, here's another thing, take a little listen to the music. Sounds really good. Anyways, when we start the game, we're given the option of 3 difficulties: story mode, normal, and tactician, which is easy, normal, and hard respectively. I picked normal since this is what I assume the game is bounced around, which is my reasoning for picking normal in most games, and away we go to the character creator. Here we can customize our pixel avatar, changing their race, gender, hair, eye color, as well as their starting clothing and weapon. We can also give them a name, and I'm never good at coming up with one. I mean, just look at my channel name. So I just click random a couple of times and land on Kavothi? Kavotha? Kavoth. It looks like a fantasy name, so I just stick with that. After I pick my look, we can then choose our backstory, which affects some of our stats. At this point, I just decided to go with the tried and true warrior build. It's pretty boring, I know, but it's also fairly straightforward, and without really knowing all the game's systems, it's usually a good and simple class to begin the game with. So the focus will be on strength and constitution. Also, as far as I know, these backstories don't affect any of the dialogue, maybe in future versions. Next up, inclination, which is a new thing that they added in version 0.6, which grants us special dialogue options. I pick academic to try and get rid of the stereotype that warriors have low IQs. I unga bunga, but smartly. Next up, all our attributes. We got primaries, strength, dexterity, and intelligence, which affects the damage of certain weapon groups. Secondaries, initiative, which affect turn order, constitution, how much HP you have, and memory, how many skills you can have equipped at one time. Combat proficiencies like precision, which affect accuracy, dodging, which affect, well, dodge rate, lethality, which is crit rate and crit damage, and deflection, which is block chance and block amount. And finally, our schools, which are all of the skill categories, to which I'm going all in on warrior. The higher the level, the stronger skills you can equip from that school, as well as better effectiveness, i.e. damage, from those skills. Last category, we have abilities. We can pick 3 of any of the starting skills of the school that we picked to begin the game with. And talents, which gives us passives that affect things like evasion rate, our social stats, i.e. inspire or charm, or increase rewards from looting or mining. It's a lot to take in, but luckily scrolling over any of these options do give you an idea of what they do, so that's handy. That's always the issue I have with certain RPGs. You tell me to make a character, but I literally have zero idea on any of the game's systems before we start, so it's nice to actually get an idea of what things do. With all that done, we finally have our character. We start the game off sailing on a ship headed for Respite Island. I go around talking to all the NPCs to figure out what's happening. You can easily tell who the important NPCs are because they have a portrait instead of nothing. The characters of note are Asuka, a half-elf from the forests of Mir, who through conversation we can gather that this is our first expedition, and not only that, but we're the leader of this expedition. We're tasked to explore and investigate the Mythshade Isles, which further talking with this historian Thuda, we were given this task by the Heroes Guild to try and uncover the island's mysteries. We also get an academic option here which just makes us say this line: "A land without history is like a book with missing chapters. I intend to fill them in." Well, at least my warrior is trying to sound smart. The other character of note is Lucite, a knight sent by the Heroes Guild to accompany us on our expedition. He informs us of a House Mazan, whose power on the island has dwindled compared to the other great houses. There are other NPCs and they're not too important, but they do give a bit of world building. Before retiring for the day, I speak to Asuka one more time, telling her that my tummy hurts, and she gives me a health potion. I love her already. And finally, off to bed. Ominously, we're told that we're being pulled into a mysterious void and... oh, a village on fire. Is this our past, or is this the potential future? We don't know yet, so I keep moving forward. On the ground we see dead, bloodied bodies. Honestly, wasn't really expecting this game to be dark, but regardless, I loot them, because, I mean, they don't need the items anymore, right? Yoink! I continue forward and see a priest calling out to me, screaming about stopping the Magus Temporalis, but then proceeds to get stabbed from behind. Ouch. No loot on him though. Further on, we see 2 knights about to get killed by some dark presence, and they are brutal deaths too. One gets burned, leaving only a skeleton, and the other gets impaled. It definitely sets the mood for sure. It's honestly pretty great. It's brutal, but not to the point of being overly gory or gratuitous. It's an issue I have with some games trying to be dark and mature. All they do is just have blood and guts everywhere to the point of almost being comedic. Also, I should probably mention, movement is mouse clicks only, no WASD, and right click brings up a context menu to do other things like examine or search. We get some more fallen soldiers. This one's face has apparently been scorched beyond recognition. Well, I guess he won't be needing this. More brutal imagery like this priest hanging from this pole. Just the top half, that is. The bottom half has been cleanly ripped off. And finally, at the end we see an NPC. It's the woman we saw in the main menu and on the banner for the game, Leora. She gives us some cryptic clues about the potential end of the world before disappearing into a puff of smoke. The statue explodes, releasing some sort of dark monstrosity. And now, we get to our first tutorial battle against two dark figures. On the top of the screen we see our turn order, which is determined by our initiative stat. This never changes as far as I know. There isn't a skill that increases initiative mid-battle. Only summoning changes the order slightly, but we'll get to that later. Every character has two resources, this orange one which is movement points and this blue one which is action points. Movement points are used to, well, move, with one block per point, and action points are for everything else. Note there is no mana in this game, it's all action points and cooldowns. These two resources can also be carried over through turns up until a cap, and you can regenerate around 3 to 4 per turn, which can be changed via skills. Another very important mechanic here are these three bars. The red one is obviously our health, but the white and blue bars are armor and magic barrier respectively. They act as extra health towards either physical or magic attacks, but that's not their only function. You see, as long as you have armor or magic armor, you resist certain status effects. If you look at my skill, Piercing Slash, the damage goes through armor and inflicts bleed, but the bleed itself is resisted by armor, meaning it won't apply as long as the enemy has armor. Same with my stun move. This is incredibly important because there are some powerful status effects, but I'll explain them when we get to them. Also, the status application step is after the damage step, so if the enemy has armor but the damage of the attack removes it, then the effect will still get applied. And that's all for now. I definitely struggled in this first fight. I didn't really know a lot of the mechanics, mainly because the game doesn't really tell you. But in the end, I barely won. I had to use healing potions, which does cost an action point to use. There are two more mechanics, attacks of opportunity and facing direction, but I'll explain those when they happen. For now, we beat the encounter, and the dream entity speaks to us once again very cryptically, warning us about secrets and lies and of a chronomancer named Thavir, who is a master of illusions and how they should not be trusted. He offers us a potential partnership before burning us in complete darkness. Honestly, a great opener. I am very interested. We wake up in a pilgrim camp, unsure how we got here, and we get a new objective, to seek out Asuka and Lucite. In this camp we have a few merchants and a grandma who can heal us, for free by the way. A dog we can pet, thank you very much devs, a monk who gives us a side quest to find his lost companions, and finally, our companions, who inform us that a storm took us out. After the conversation, they join our party. Asuka in particular has a special passive to let us talk to animals, which sounds good to me. Asuka starts off with Hunter and Geomancer skills, while Lucite starts off with Warrior and Aeromancer skills. Each of your party members has their own inventory, which is pretty large by the way, and spoiler alert, you're gonna need it. But for now, as my OC is the designated warrior slash physical character, I set both Lucite and Asuka to focus on their mage skills. We have a battle formation where we can select pre-made formations in battle, unfortunately no custom ones, a journal for quests, a grimoire to see all learned and memorized skills. On the top right of this menu we have available memory slots, which is what the memory stat affects. You can learn as many skills as you want, but you can only equip up to that amount. And finally, a crafting menu that lets us craft once we get some recipes. Now that we have Asuka, we can talk to the dog, who gives us a quest to fix his ball, and with that, we can start exploring. The next area we have is the Sunlit Woodlands, and this exclamation mark means we have a quest here, which is a nice quality of life feature. Entering the area we get some camera controls. We can move the camera a pretty far distance from our character so we can see what's ahead, but up to a limit. Unfortunately, there's no zooming in or out and you can't rotate the camera, so this is the only perspective. I saw a review on Steam that described the game as claustrophobic, and I have to agree. The camera is too zoomed in, and there's a lot of clutter in the environment. Hopefully they zoom the camera out just a little bit or give us the ability to zoom, but for now, let's get to exploring. You can search the environment for items, and it does pop up as empty once you do, so there's no need to double check everything, and once you get certain materials, you automatically learn some recipes that use them. But moving on, we get a small cutscene of a creature fleeing us, with the disembodied narrator warning us of the dangers of the forest. But then we meet a lemur, so it can't be all bad, right? This lemur looks down on our human intelligence and gives us a quiz, which is just a bunch of riddles and some pop references, but I totally ace it, and he gives us a trinket which I give to Asuka. I continue on and get into a fight. The enemies use a skill here that everyone has called dash, and this one basically trades 2 action points for some movement points. Also, here's an example of me being able to apply stun even though the enemy still had armor. As long as you can get rid of it before the application step, you're good to go. Asuka here has a skill that causes poison but is resisted by magic barrier, and of course, the benefit of magic is that it has a large range. She also has skills that can remove bleeding and restore armor. Armor and magic barrier, by the way, regen after each battle. And she also has a skill that lets her set down a trap. And this game does have friendly fire, and I'll let you imagine how I figured that out. Next, Lucite. His lightning attacks are pretty powerful, attacking multiple times and can inflict shock, which does some dot, reduces water resist, and reduces movement regen per turn. It also has another powerful application, but we'll see that later. Here, we see attacks of opportunity. Basically, if you try to move away from an enemy in melee range, they get 1 free sucker punch on you per turn. This applies to enemies as well, but this was added recently, I assume, to incentivize melee, since it suffers from pretty low range. Another mechanic is ranged attacks need line of sight. As you can see, the mage normal attack is a line, and if you try to attack an enemy either behind another character or obstacle, it'll say it's blocked. Anyways, I finished the fight, but not before Kvothe dies. Unfortunate. When you finish a fight, you get some experience and the ability to loot every single enemy that died in battle. Now, dead allies can only be revived by a resurrection scroll or long resting at an inn. The healer back at camp cannot revive allies. Also, the dead ally stays in the same screen where they died, so be careful. Death is extremely costly in this world, and I mean that in the money sense. A scroll costs over 200 silver, so yeah, money down the drain, but I can't exactly leave the main character, so I revive him and continue forward. I find the necessary items to fix the dog's ball, find the treasure map, and encounter some more enemies. I do much better this time and encounter a new mechanic, battle conditions, aka weather effects, that affect the entire battlefield. This one is Dust Storm, that reduces everyone's accuracy rating, both allies and enemies, so remember that. Doesn't matter though, since I still won, and with no deaths this time, so suck it, Rexites. We also get a victory screen this time that tallies up all the damage dealt and healing done, how long it took, etc. And we also get our first level up. Now each level always gives us an attribute point, but these other categories we only get sometimes. Even though it says we have one here, we actually don't. The UI is a bit buggy. I loot some resources and equipment, do another battle, and dig up the treasure from the map, which you need a shovel to do. I examine the statue and get introduced to a new character, Undine. I hope I'm saying that right. A divine being who only we can see. She doesn't say anything and simply fades away. I loot a funny looking water essence and get a small cutscene with these pirates who we have to fight. We get to see a summoning spell here where this hunter lady summons a dog, and its place on the timeline is right after the summoners and can immediately take a turn. It's a pretty powerful spell. I do feel bad having to kill the dog, but I win the fight and continue into the cave. We encounter Katharina, the second most beautiful pirate in the world, and she sells us some stuff, legally and ethically. I do like the humor in this game, it's pretty funny. Here I finally try out the bartering system. Each item you own has an original value, I assume, which is crossed out, and a sell value. If you want something from a vendor, you need to match its value, whether in silver or items or a combination. I buy a shield for Kvothe so he doesn't die, or at least die slower, and here we get possibly the most useful bit of information in the entire game. The Alt button highlights interactables. Holy shit, this is amazing. It shows you everything you can loot and even the tiles on the floor. It's the greatest quality of life thing in this game. It's an on-demand loot vision. I wish they told me this sooner. That said, I do wish they also highlighted NPCs or merchants, since not every NPC is talkable, as well as entry and exit points. There's times where there's an exit to another area, but I don't see it since the icon to teleport out only appears when you're next to it. It's especially bad due to the forced perspective. If the exit is going away from the camera, like say to the bottom left, you can't tell if there's one there. So devs, please add that to the loot vision. Anyways, with that I get to looting, and immediately find the exact same shield that I just bought. God damn it, I give it to Asuka. Another thing that the loot vision highlights is the battle range. If you touch the red tiles, you go into battle, and blue means you're safe. It's very handy. Now I'm not gonna bore you with every single battle, only the ones that introduce something cool, but I totally have everything under control. I meet up with this talking chest, Chester Lockbox, Chesty for short, and he asks us to look for his wife. Anyways, I find another statue of Undine, and this time she actually speaks to us. She gives us hints on our apparent importance and refers to us as Holy crap, look at those Calariel, a traveler who walks between realms. Interesting. I'm unsure whether Calariel is our supposed name or that's what the realm travelers are called, but she asks us if we've killed any of her children. I simply state my name, but she continues to call me Calariel, implying I've forgotten something important. She further asks whether or not I'll end up serving her or the unclean ones. I try to sound super smart, but she is unimpressed. Dang. Anyways, I loot her chest, not that one, and continue on. Yeah, I bet the sculptor had a field day with that one. I exit into an underground ravine and rest for a little while. The pixel art truly is amazing, and I drink a whole lot of water. I encounter another group of pirates, and here's where I figure out the friendly fire. I had Asuka put a trap here and then proceed to get knocked back into it turns later. Not my finest moment. Totally under control. I've also been picking up these notes, which gives a bit of lore, and damn are some of them dark. I highly recommend reading these, it really adds to the world. I encounter an NPC, Makuma, whom we convince to join our side in the upcoming battle, and meet Mrs. Lockbox, who is currently drowning. And we get a small minigame, 9 turns left to save her from drowning. I won't spoil how to get to the solution, but at the end I tell her to spit out her treasures and manage to grab a goblet before it all sinks. It was a pretty funny event. I go back to the husband and get another reward and some experience, which all quests give by the way, so it helps to do them. And finally meet the mage from before, Sherry Frost. I try to reason with her, but it's no use, and go into battle. In this fight, Makumo joins us as a third party, so he acts on his own. The battle is pretty difficult. Sherry can apply Frozen and has a bunch of powerful magic attacks. Although something cool that can happen with the ice is that it can freeze the floor, which makes it so that when you walk over it, you slide all the way to the other end. If you remember the ice gym in the old Pokemon games where you slide until you hit a wall, it's just like that. It can be a pretty useful way of movement since it only takes 1 point to slide. Sherry also invokes Rainfall, which makes everyone wet. Not like that, you pervs, which reduces lightning resist and has another incredible powerful synergy with lightning attacks. Basically anything that would apply shock instead turns into paralysis, and this bypasses magic barrier. When I figured this, it became Lucite's bread and butter. I just needed the skill invoke Rainfall and everyone is fucked. Of course this applies to you too, but we'll get to that later. Anyways, the fight goes okay, but unfortunately Makumo doesn't make it. But I beat the fight, and Undine approaches to praise me I guess, and then disappears. Rest in peace Makumo, I hardly knew you. Sweet gear though. Yoink. Normally I would save scum here, but I decided to honor mode it. It definitely had nothing to do with me being lazy, and also I only do it for this fight only. I absolutely save scum later, but I'm curious what would have happened if he survived. Oh well, in a future playthrough. Listen, I did try a resurrection scroll on him, but the game wouldn't let me, so blame the devs. Also, the mage lady dropped the invoke rainfall spell, so everyone's fucked. Anyways, I exit the cave, fix the ball, give it to the dog, and finish up that side quest. But as for the next order of business, it's some inventory management. There are lots of items in this game, and the game gives you a lot of them too. Materials, equipment, scrolls. It's a constant drip feed, which is good. I'd hate to imagine how the free-to-play NFT version handles this. But because of that, our inventory is a mess. You can put things into a stash and there is a sorting option, but I hope they somehow add some more quality of life to it. There are filters here, these little buttons, but clicking them only adds to the filter rather than switching between them. Sometimes I want to look at equipment and then consumables, then crafting materials, but it would just add them all together rather than switch between them. Another quality of life I would like to see would just be the ability to select multiple items to move them between characters. As of right now, you can only do one at a time. Also, for the bartering, I really wish you could select multiple items from different characters. There is a shared items tab here, but it doesn't show all items and it's kind of buggy as of right now. But basically, if you select items from one character to sell then switch, it removes everything off the table, which is really annoying. But with that, I was able to clean up my inventory, get some new gear, and then go on to re-loot the first area with my newfound alt button. At this point, I realized something. The enemies and lootable containers don't respawn. At first I thought, oh that sucks, so I can't farm or grind my way to victory. But after thinking about it for a second, being able to backtrack without needing to worry about random encounters is honestly pretty worth it. Because this also means that each encounter is essentially curated by the developer, specifically balanced and planned by them, which I'm totally on board with. Also, I can't stress this enough, the alt button is the greatest thing ever. I missed a ton of loot. I also got a pickaxe to get these ore veins, and after strip mining the forest and caves, I find a dead monk, which the cutscene never activated when I had a battle here earlier, but with it, we get our first social skill check, Intelligence. Now unfortunately, I didn't understand how these skill checks work, mainly because the game doesn't tell you. But basically, look at these portraits. The gold one is the character you're currently controlling, and whoever you're currently controlling, their stats is what's being used towards the skill check. So when I first did the skill check, I thought, well, Lucite has a bunch of intelligence since I designated him the int slut. I'll just examine the body, but I simply failed. If I knew better, I would have left the body, then switched characters, then did the check. But I don't figure that out until a lot later, so I fail a bunch of checks. Oops. Anyways, I informed the monk of one of his dead companions and moved to a beach. And here we finally meet Leora proper. She doesn't recognize us, but her situation is the same as ours. She got shipwrecked and doesn't quite remember what happened. And she joins our party. Leora starts off as a rogue with hydromancy. Thinking I had enough mages, I keep to her being a rogue, 2 ranged and 2 melee. I meet a hermit crab, feed him some seaweed, which Asuka likes. I get a treasure note from him that leads to a key that lets me open this chest, which contains some equipment. Which is good because earlier I sold everything and had nothing for Leora. Hooray for side quests. But now onto the town, Gladeheim. The first thing I do is to obviously talk to the animals, and this chicken gives us some ominous foreshadowing about Lucite. Only in times of adversity are one's true colors revealed. I can only pray that you won't let the darkness consume you when it eventually emerges. Huh, okay. Totally not foreboding at all. Anyways, I talked to the nearby guard and he informs us that the town is currently in lockdown due to the surrounding areas becoming far more dangerous. Pirates and beasts are becoming more active and shadowy figures are lurking in the darkness. And a nearby farm has been completely decimated. That conversation updates a Heart of Corruption quest entry. That doesn't sound too good. I fail an Inspire check because I was on Lucite, not the MC, and he gives me a map. The party discusses our next move, which would be to get a ship and make our way to Mistshade Isles, and that would be our major goal for version 0.6. Leora also suggests finding a crew and potentially a merchant to give us a ship. I look around town. There are a lot of NPCs you can talk to for lore, merchants for all manner of goods, and most importantly, loot containers to get free loot. There's no stealing mechanic here, it's all mine for the taking. Side quests aren't marked by the way, so you do need to talk to NPCs to pick them up, and there's quite a few of them. I'll let you experience it for yourself, but some examples include fixing this sick alpaca who is currently experiencing the void, diffusing a situation where these group of animals plan on murking another alpaca, and solving this gruesome murder scene. Jeez. There's definitely a lot more, but let's focus on the main objective. You can enter this tavern, which hosts even more NPCs, where you can pick up some bounties, talk to this fat arrogant noble who I butter up, although Lucite didn't like that, but I got a cool necklace out of it, so who's the real loser here, Lucite? Certainly not I. an NPC that hints of something following us and also refers to us as Calario, but can also respec your stats. Some more merchants, one selling a bunch of skill books, the bar owner who can rest our party, and a bigwig merchant who offers us a ship in return for a favor. He wants us to go to some secret auction to buy a pixie. Our companions warn us of his slimy nature, with Asuka telling us that pixies are pure creatures and them being sold is wrong. But Leora, being the realist, suggests we should just do it for the ship. Not like we have much of a choice here, but I begrudgingly accept, and he gives us an Amara keystone as well as 500 silver for the auction. And now we have our goal. Get to the auction, buy a pixie, and get a ship. I talk to more NPCs around town, get some more quests, loot some more loot, and talk to this lady about her missing son. She talks of a new group in town known as the Azure Company, a suspicious group that owns a clinic called Little Haven that apparently can cure anything, a miracle shop. But Biscuit, this dog, smells bad things coming from over there, so we accept the quest to find her missing son. Now, as I was exploring the town, I did encounter a little weird bug. While I was in the middle of another quest in the cemetery, Leora, transforms into someone different. At first I thought this was a spoiler, like, whoa, what happens to Leora? But no, it's a completely different character you encounter later on. I don't know how this happened, but there you go devs, make sure to fix that. Anyways, back to the Azure Company. I visit the clinic and find a bunch of people in Plague Doctor masks, tending to various people, one of which is another lost monk. We ask them about the missing son, and Gerha was told by a pharmacist that, oh no, he's fine, he got better and left. No questions asked. But Gerha didn't actually see him, so it's all very suspicious. I return to the mother and she tells us to go seek out Alan Adeo, and he warns us about the Azure Company and notes how people have been disappearing, and that late at night, he could hear screams coming from their underground. He noticed 20 masked people went in and none came out. I then talk to the one in charge, General Zilfred, whom we talk about the missing son. We convince him to give us authorization to search the clinic, even though he says it doesn't hold much weight. But the receptionist doesn't know that. Anyways, we mention to him about our main quest and he gives us permission to cross the lockdown into the other areas. In return, we find his men that have gone missing, as well as his daughter, Persephone. I go back to the clinic, show the receptionist our authorization, and I search the basement. We find some Plague Doctor masks and a door that requires a key. The receptionist plays dumb about the door, and now the quest will have to go into the back burner since we have no clues as to what the key would be. I make my way to the world map and go into a lighthouse to do a bounty. The area is eerily quiet with only ghost NPCs. The ghost, however, is traumatized by what is happening in the lighthouse and begs us not to go in there. But I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Oh, blood ritual. I have to say the game does a great job at atmosphere. I love these designs. Not overly gory, but still incredibly unsettling. I approach the blood skull and it refers to us as Sirath. Yup, nailed it. And he calls himself Thal-Eth, another god akin to Undine. But enough talk. He wants our souls, so on to battle. It was a pretty tough fight. The enemies could teleport, but they all had an elusive buff, which gave them a flat 50% evasion. But I now had some cool new skills to play with. The rainfall plus lightning combo, Leora who can freeze enemies, as well as having directional attacks, which leads to a new mechanic, backstabs. Characters face a certain direction, and only certain attacks, mainly from the rogue school, can apply backstabs, which is large bonus damage. But apart from that, direction doesn't really matter. Asuka has a few new skills. One lets her summon a thorny tulip, which is great for tanking hits and taking aggro, and luckily basically every school has some form of summon, even warriors and rogues, although some schools have more than others, obviously. That said, there can only be one summon per character. If a character already has one and they try to summon another, the previous one dies off. Also, if you kill the summoner, the summoned one automatically dies. Anyways, I win with ease and properly meet Thal-Eth, but he soon runs away with his tail between his legs. Ha ha. I return back to the Bounty Master, get my reward, and continue the main quest, Peafowl Passage. We find another statue of Undine, and she appears once again, and she explains a little of what a Calario is, someone who glimpses the threads between worlds, and I try to ask for help, but she scoffs at the idea, claiming her power is not for mortals. She tasks us to recover artifacts of her children to prove our loyalty, and warns us that the shadows walk with us before fading away. I continue onward to hear a talking mound of dirt, but digging it reveals a new character, a talking skull, Moray, who talks very highly of himself, but we just kinda brush him off. He asks us to find a new body for him and sprinkle in a little bit of necromancy to let him be whole again. Although Lucite and Asuka oppose to the idea, but I play along for now. We put him in our inventory. See, he's right there, and continue with our quest. We see a band of dead soldiers, Zilfrid's men, and find one barely alive. Asuka heals him and he warns us that the Azure Company is all in on it. They're working with the enemy. We clean him up and send him back to town. I explore the area and find 2 points of interest, a cave that leads to a bunch of poison, and a cave filled with aromancy. Lucite gives us a warning that whatever is in there is bad news, but what's the worst that can happen? Yeah, so this fight is hard, like really hard. Turns out, water and lightning is a real powerful combo, especially when it's used on you. I'm not ashamed to admit it, but I had to retry a bunch. I even drank potions beforehand to try and get some air resistance. But when you have a boss that's immune to lightning, invokes water, and whose basic attack can bounce lightning around your party, instantly shocking them, you're gonna have a bad time. But I was able to win with only 1 casualty, so hooray! I do like how the optional boss encounters are actually difficult though. Anyways, with that done, I moved to this game's Poison Swamp, an underground cave that's filled with poison tiles. At the entrance of the cave, the party has a conversation at the area's horrible stench, with Asuka wanting to take a bath after all this. Moray decides to not so subtly insult our half-elf friend here, and Asuka proceeds to remind us why she is best girl, by very casually threatening to wash our skelly friend into the next pond we find, down here in this poison-filled cave, which scares even our totally not evil skeleton friend. Now, I haven't really mentioned it till now, but this game does have a huge amount of enemy variety, and they all have different skills and tactics. At this point, I'm a good 6 hours in, and it hasn't felt repetitive at all. We reach an area in the cave that requires everyone to wear a Plague Doctor mask, and luckily for us there is just enough, so I hope you've all been exploring. But we get some more unsettling imagery, this poisonous pool filled to the brim with skeletons. But with the final Plague Doctor mask, we can finally make our way through to the poisonous section of the cave. There's an area with a crazy looking poison skull face and a woman in a vat of poison. It's someone we saw earlier by accident, not Leora. Luckily, at this point I understood how the skill check system works, and was able to pass all of them. We find the woman's name is Persephone, the general's daughter, and proceed to free her. She has quite the attitude, and I'm sure some of you are into that, but we take her to her father and she explained to us that Moreau, a so-called healer, and the Azure Company did this to her, to which Zilfrid gives us full backing to take the Azure Company down. We try to convince Persephone to take a rest, but she informs us that Moreau is her kill, and that the corruption is now growing inside her. Obviously, right? Just look at her. Her eye is green. Green! But she was able to see via the corruption, and how that the nearby farm has been consumed by it. And with that, we have permission to deal with the farm. And also, Persephone joins our squad. Unfortunately, we can only have 4 people, with the other characters sitting out in the pub. Considering Persephone also has the wild heart trait to talk to animals, I unfortunately tell Asuka to sit this one out. So now the team consists of myself, Persephone, Lucite, and Leora. Persephone starting off with engineering and pyromancy. Anyways, back to the poison cave, I find an exit to the Azure Company's labs. Here I find a trapped Rek'Site whom I was able to free before the fight, and it joined in as an ally. And let me say, pyromancy is powerful, like satisfyingly powerful. Big AoEs, burn dots, fire summons, it's all great. If I was smarter, I wouldn't have paired an Aeromancer that wants rain with a fire user, but that's my bad. I beat the fight with the ally surviving this time, and it just has an extra line of dialogue. No extra reward or anything. Come on devs, give us a reward for doing stuff like that. I scan around the room and it's a horrific sight. Bodies cut up and tortured, body parts severed. It's pretty disgusting, but I was able to find the lost boy and free him from his jail. I also find the exit which leads to the clinic basement. Huh. Interesting. I wonder what the key was then. Did I just sequence break, or am I just stupid? I go back and explore some more and huh? Yep, nothing to see here. We get some charred remains which unfortunately belong to our monk's missing companions and a giant head, one of Dr. Moreau's lab experiments. He tells us of a twisted wizard society called Tir Otho, a place where wizards operate with zero ethics and morals, all for the pursuit of knowledge. His master is located on a small island east of Respite. He gives us some more context of his plans, and the head's true masters, the wizards of Tir Otho, only care about one thing, and that's knowledge. The truths, no matter how dark or grim. That's all they care about. I say my goodbyes to the head, return to the mother, and finish the quest. And that is the end of the Azure Ouroboros questline for now. And I do mean that. On the journal it says that that is currently all there is for the quest in early access. That was a side quest, by the way. Holy crap, I'm totally hooked. I go back to Peafowl Passage and explore north and find the rest of Zilford's men. With them, we ambush a bunch of monsters. I keep them all alive and Captain Freed gives us an extra reward. General Zilford gives us a proper reward for the quest and tells us of another place that needs our help, which we'll visit later. For now, I go back to the newly unlocked Temple of Undine. She appears once again and tells us to deal with the Azure Company to cleanse her shrine, and considering what they're up to, I happily oblige. And proceed to, cleanse the cave of their presence. The fights do steadily step up quite a bit, with more enemies that can all do new things. It's pretty fun. In fact, they knew this area would be tough, so they have Undine actually provide some end of turn healing. I continue deeper into the cave and find the Ouroboros key for that big door. Huh, I guess I was supposed to come here first. Oops. We get some more fights that I totally breeze through and meet a demon blacksmith who calls us Vyrath and claims to know us. We clearly don't know anything about him, so he tells us it's not time we meet yet. More hints to our mysterious origin. But with that, we found who we're supposed to give the Amara Keystone to for the auction. Remember the main quest to get the ship? He grants us passage to the auction, but before that, I want to explore that new area the general gave us, the Mazan Forward Camp. I find a closed gate with blood seeping underneath and have to find another way through. So I go southeast and encounter some enemies. Unfortunately for me, I didn't examine them beforehand, otherwise I would have seen that they're level 10. I'm only level 6. Needless to say, I got absolutely destroyed. It's not even close. But hey, you can see what it looks like to get a game over. Even the mightiest oak can be felled by a single storm. Yeah, well, who was the oak in that situation? Was it me? I didn't feel particularly mighty. Make sure to save often, kiddos. But with that, I go back to the demon blacksmith and make my way to the Oasis Amara. And that is where I'm going to end this pseudo playthrough. That is about 10 hours worth of gameplay boiled down to 45 minutes. Now I did play this game all the way to the end of the current content and I recorded it all too. But every single quest that's in the journal that's still active has "You've reached the end of the content available in early access." Of course there could also be some more quests I missed, but I'm pretty sure I've done the majority of them. My total playtime is around 19 hours, so there's around double the amount of content from where I left off, and I did leave a bunch of stuff out for the video. Granted, some of them is cleaning out my inventory, but it's all part of the experience. I ended the game at level 10, nearing level 11. And honestly, the game keeps getting better. There are so many interesting characters, quests, and lore. There's a great quest where you need to figure out who broke or is breaking into the vault and find enough evidence to accuse someone. There's a lot of fun puzzles out there that isn't just, oh, push button, open door, hooray, puzzle complete, like so many RPGs do. There was one I remember that I had literally no idea what to do, but later I found a random book in a nearby library that had names that matched the portraits, which was the key to solving it. I felt pretty smart discovering that. There's also 2 more characters available, Hollow Eye and a fully complete Moray, at your service. Even more skills and spell variety. Combat got so much easier once I started speccing into multiple schools. For example, my character at first I was just putting everything into warrior, but I was having trouble with survivability since I made him take aggro. But I specced him into the holy school, so he had access to a heal, a statue summon that would heal every ally for a huge chunk of their health every turn, and a point into rogue, so he can learn a movement ability that let him travel like 9 spaces with a single action point, since movement is a pretty big weakness for close ranged units. There's a lot of equipment. There's weapons and rings that grant you a free ability that don't use up a memory slot, and armors that give you even more stats, trinkets that give you things like initiative and more ability slots. They're really not stingy with it at all. They give you a lot to play with. Also the visuals, the pixel art is wonderful, the animations are smooth, the equipment show on the characters. Hell, as morbid as this sounds, even the enemy death animations are varied and interesting. But as for any complaints, I honestly don't have that much, aside from the camera and perspective that made things kinda hard to see. There were times where there were objects blocking the camera and the game doesn't make them transparent, so I literally couldn't see and just had to guess. And it's also kinda hard to see if you're aligned with an enemy. And of course the inventory and bartering UI could do with some improvements. But other than a few bugs here and there, the performance was solid, no crashes at all. There were times where the enemy would hang on in action, but it would only be sometimes and only for a few seconds. And that's it. Now, I will say CRPGs is not a genre I play often. I looked at a list and the only games I can say I played were the Shadowrun series. They also listed Dragon Age Origins and Knights of the Old Republic, which I have played, Origins being my favorite Dragon Age game, but people say they aren't really CRPGs, so my experience is limited. But where I'm getting at with this is that if Guild Saga is considered average or not good, then damn CRPGs must be an incredible genre, since I thought Guild Saga was genuinely great. Guild Saga Vanished Worlds is a good game. Honestly, for 30 Australian dollars I got my money's worth, and it's still in early access. There's still more content on the way. I mean, it's only $5 more than Superior Vengeance, yet it's a much better game. All that to say is that I am genuinely really sad that this series is going the NFT route. Like, they plan on making a free-to-play NFT version of the story mode, and honestly I wonder how it'll compare. What things are they gonna rebalance? Which parts are they gonna monetize? NFT devs always say the Web3 enhances the game, but I really don't see that happening here. Also, would that mean that I paid $30 for an inferior product? Who knows? Also, that roguelike dungeon crawler that they're working on honestly looks kinda fun, but it's going to be filled with pay-to-win NFT and crypto garbage. I hope they make a paid version without all that crap, but as it stands, the devs are going full speed ahead with NFTs, and it's honestly disappointing. But as for Vanished Worlds, assuming it stays completely separate from their NFT garbage, meaning any changes they make to the free-to-play version won't apply to the paid version, then I absolutely recommend this game. If you're a fan of RPGs, this is a fun game. For anyone experienced in CRPGs, how did this game look to you? Did it look good? Leave a comment, I'd be curious to know. And if you're maybe thinking you want to play the game but don't want to support an NFT dev, I mean, there are worse companies out there. I mean, Ubisoft is an NFT dev, and people still gladly buy their games, right? At the end of the day, it's your money, you can do whatever you want with it. I can only hope that by some miracle, Ocelot decides to step away from NFTs and crypto, and we can have a really good series born from it. But this video is getting really long, especially since this is only for a single game. But let's finish it off. Guild Saga Vanished Worlds. It's a really good game. And that is that. A really good game whose future is, say it with me now, ruined by crypto and NFTs. I hope I remember to keep this title for YouTube, otherwise none of this will make sense. But that's all I have for today. This video is actually very special because it's probably the only video in the series that has a 100% success rate of playable games. Would you look at that? An incredible feat that'll probably never happen again. I of course want to give a huge shout out to my channel members. Not My Name, who's a new member, welcome to the club, hope you enjoy your stay. Toast and Dan, thank you all so much. Your memberships directly contribute to the channel. For all my subscribers, thank you. Your continued support makes these videos worth making, and to everyone else, I hope you didn't hate it. But that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like and a sub if you did, and I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!